Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome into Morning in the Valley. It is May the 12th. Glad you are with us today, wherever you are watching us today. Facebook, X, YouTube. Glad you are with us. If you haven't done so yet, head on over to YouTube for us and search out Morning in the Valley. Subscribe to that page, like it, share it, comment, all that good stuff. Helps us get into the old algorithm and get out in front of some more eyeballs, and certainly in front of more Missouri Valley Conference basketball fans. Coming up here in a little bit, we're going to hear from Harry Schroeder. He is the Valley Hoops insider, and we'll talk a little this, a little that under the Missouri Valley Conference umbrella, and get some thoughts and opinions from the man himself, Harry Schroeder. That'll be in about 5 to 7 minutes. We've got some news and notes this morning, and I guess on some level, these news and notes are in theory right now that hopefully will be chiseled in stone in about a month. The NCAA Men's Basketball Rules Committee has met, and they have proposals to change some rules for the 2025-26 season. Those proposals will go to the NCAA Playing Rules Oversight Panel. We'll go from one committee to another committee, and that panel will meet on June the 10th, and they will have the opportunity to approve all of those proposals. Most significantly on the men's side is they are moving towards implementing a challenge system for coaches, which will allow coaches to challenge out of bounds calls, basket interference, and goaltending, and then whether there are secondary defenders in the restricted area. Now, the catch to the challenge is coaches get one, and to use it, you have to have a timeout. If you are successful, you get one more to use for the rest of the game. If it's unsuccessful, you're out of challenges. So the key to, I think, the whole thing is you get one, maybe two if you're lucky, but for the most part, one. And in the final 2 minutes, as we have seen in the past, and I think the crux of all of these proposals is just trying to speed up the end of games that have just dragged on for so long. So in the final 2 minutes, referees can only go check goaltending, and they can check the restricted area, but there will be no referee initiated reviews on out of bounds unless there is a challenge to be used by a coach. And again, one. So that is a pretty potentially significant change to just getting games over closer to 2 hours rather than 2.5 hours, as we have seen sort of progress over the last couple of years. We talk about committees to committees, and then we're going to talk about another committee, as the rules committee has asked Division I conferences to create a working group to look at moving from halves to quarters for the 26-27 season. So they would like another committee to get together and work for this year to really check out the options of going from halves to quarters. I think it is I think there are purists, like literally anything. It doesn't matter what the change is. People get upset about it. And on some level, I can understand it. It's just that when it comes to college basketball on the men's side, it's the only halves we've got: high school quarters, NBA quarters, the women's game all the way up, quarters, 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 FIBA, international basketball, quarters. And so I think it is it's just catching up with everybody else. Yes, there's a uniqueness to it, but I think, again, from a standpoint of speeding games along, is that what you have so often is teams get in the double bonus, with 13, 14 minutes left in a half. And then it's just a free throw shooting contest, and the game just takes forever. This would, at least, you get 10 minutes into the half. At the end of a quarter, you reset the fouls just like you do in the women's game, and things just seem to roll along a little bit better. One of the biggest issues that they're going to have to figure out, and again, for basketball fans, they could care less about these two words, but in the business, the entertainment of college basketball, it's maybe the most important thing, is commercial inventory. when you've got these media timeouts at 16, 12, 8, 4, and the second half, you get some random extra one slipped in there so they can run commercials. Well, when you've got quarters, and if you're just going to have a timeout at the 5 minute mark, that's going to change things up a little bit. And then obviously at the end of the quarter, it changes the inventory, and they have to figure that out. And so um, that may be as big of a hindrance as anything. But look, you slip another 30 seconds here or there throughout the game. You can probably get all your commercials in if you really want to, but that'll be part of the calculus they're trying to work. But again, the committee has asked for another committee, and they'll talk about that all this year, and then maybe in 26, 27, that can be enacted. There's also going to be a proposal about adding more of a continuation play that you see in the NBA, where a guy can get fouled and then the continuation into the act of shooting. The NBA, that's the way it works. College, if you're not in the act when you're fouled, you don't get the bucket if it goes. So that'll be something they're going to talk about. And two other minor ones down the line is the for the if there is, it's just funny that they specified this in the news release that currently a groin shot is a shot to the groin is either a common foul or a flagrant two, which means an ejection. They want to give officials an opportunity to move that to a flagrant one, which you know, I guess varying degrees of shots below the belt. And then from a shot clock standpoint, and the rule right now is that either both shot clocks are on or both are off. So if one end malfunctions, you turn both of them off. They want to leave the one on. I don't know that I care one way or the other about that, but that is one more thing they will be talking about. The women also, their rules committee going through a much smaller list, but the key to the women's is again about coaches' challenges and what they can review. And this release wasn't written as clearly, so I think there is some question about how this would be administered. But what I believe it is inferring is that, again, you don't need a timeout. Unlike the men to get their review, they have to have a timeout. The women would not need a timeout. But if they lose the challenge, they are assessed a technical foul. The way I'm believing that this reads is if the women have a timeout and they lose it, they lose the timeout. If they don't have a timeout and they lose it, they get a technical foul. If you win your challenge, everything stays normal, and you can do as many challenges as you want. So that why they wouldn't make it the same for both, I don't know, but that is kind of the way they're going through it. Again, you can review out of bounds, backcourt violations. There's a couple other minutia deals that could be reviewed as well, but those are the main ones. Also, they are looking at moving the following a dead ball. If the offense still has the ball and it's in the front court, that the shot clock would reset to 20 instead of 30. You see that in the men's game already, so that's a pretty commonsensical one. And then my favorite one is the elimination of the jerseys needing to be tucked in rule. There are certainly some fashion police officials out there that you just hear them all the time. Just tuck in your shirt, tuck in your shirt. Well, in the women's game, apparently they're trying to just let them play with their shirts out if they would like. So that will be fine. But again, that is June the 10th is when that oversight committee will go through. They will go through all of the oversight panel. Excuse me, it's not a committee; it's a panel. There is a little difference. The panel will go through those proposals, and we'll see what will be enacted into law that will be ready to roll for the 2025-26 season. All right, we've got some player acquisitions to talk about in Peoria. This is one that we talked about last week from a commitment standpoint, and now it is official, and it is a signing. Jackson Seastrunk from outside Houston, Texas, 6'4" combo guard, has officially signed with Brian Wardle and the Bradley Braves, a teammate of Montana Wheeler, high school teammate of Montana Wheeler, who also signed with Bradley back in November. It appears that Seastrunk will come in and be a redshirt, be sort of a developmental year for him. And reports out of Peoria as they want to sign one more big guy and also redshirt him. Because again, you got 15 scholarships to use. You're not playing 15 guys, and that's going to be part of the calculus and the conversation now with these kids to try to explain to them that everybody wants to come in, everybody wants to play, but it's like, look, you're not going to play. You're just not. Let's not burn the year. Just come in, work, get better, and then next year you will be ready to roll and much better prepared to crack the rotation for us. So, but that's part of the recruiting process now, because again, kids want to play and they want to play now, and especially if you're coming into a high level, it's hard to crack that rotation. But C-Strunk appears to be headed to the red shirt path. Speaking of Brian Wardle, he talked with Harry Schroeder earlier, I guess last week now, about a lot of things. Harry just catching up with Coach about the offseason at Bradley and acquisitions and guys that have departed. But one thing that they talked about that I thought was interesting was just about the transfer portal in the NIL world and Coach Wardle's, I guess, the mindset he has towards that right now. And I want to bring that to you, and just if you haven't gotten a chance to see it, just a 1 minute answer to the question just about how Bradley is dealing with the portal and the NIL, and really how it all fits in as a whole right now to the whole this new era of college basketball and how the Missouri Valley Conference fits into it. And here is Brian Wardle's response to that question from our friend Harry Schroeder.
Because it is a lot like European basketball, Harry. I got my old agent now that represented me back in the early 2001 to 2002 is now working with an agency that reps all these players. And he really broke it down to me like, Brian, it's just European basketball now. He goes, just like I tried to do with you, we want to sign a contract, an 8-month contract, play your season out. Hopefully you win, put up some stats, and then we'll try to move you onto a bigger league in Europe and have you make more money. And he goes, and that's until there's more regulation and rules, that's, I think, how these agents are really dictating this. And they have a heavy say in this recruiting process. So I think the Valley, we're doing the right things. It sounds like as a coach and programs, I see everybody, really elevating their NIL, developing their players, retaining their players. I love to see our league retain players. I think that's a great thing for our league. And I think we're going to get there as we move forward. Having, going all under the one roof, having, I don't even know if it's 20 million, 21 million, or 22 million, Harry. I always hear a different number.
Yes, I do too.
But having that budget for your athletic department hopefully will calm things down a little bit. But it is here to stay right now, and you better adapt or you die. And you better figure out ways to be competitive, because we all want to win, and we want the Valley to be as competitive as a league
as it possibly can be. And I really think the main point that he nailed is just about retention. And I think that as we move forward in this NIL world and revenue sharing, and as he mentioned, that 21 $22 million that schools have the ability to revenue to share with their student athletes, that is not a number that is going to be used at the mid-major level, but it should be 7 figures. How many 7 figures, that's going to be up to each individual school, but I think that the key to the success of the mid-major from an NCAA tournament standpoint, and that is where everything matters, because that is where you go play games, you win games, you make money for your league, and then things can snowball a little bit, is when they have had experienced teams, veteran teams, teams that have played together for years, and you go in against these big boys that maybe have a bunch of one and dones and first year guys and whatever, and the experience wins out. And I'm really just fascinated to watch because right now it's all about having money to go get guys. I really feel like in the Valley and in our level, it's going to be use that money to retain guys. You're not going to be able to retain all of them, but if you're able to retain a chunk, it's really going to be beneficial to program building, because that's the whole thing. We have teams, we have programs, and this NIL world right now has sort of forced everybody into team mode, and it's just year by year, and you don't know one year to the next what you've got. And I think if you've got money to be able to keep your best guys, at least a majority of your best guys, and maintain some continuity. I'm a firm believer continuity is king. We saw it last year with Drake. Yeah, they came in with a bunch of new guys at Drake, but how many of those dudes played for Ben McCollum up at Northwest Missouri State, came down, and then they were able to just go win 30 games? 30 games, sure, might be a little bit of a high ceiling, but heck, continuity is king. And so I'm really curious how those funds, yeah, okay, you got to go into the portal and get a piece. Man, we need a big guy to get us over the top. You can go do that, but not, man, we've got to go get 4, 5, 6 guys. Retention is huge. And so I would hope, but we will see, how this uh, ever evolving world we live in changes. But I think if that money can come in and be spent to keep guys you like in your program, I think that can only be beneficial moving forward for everybody uh, underneath your individual school's umbrella. All right, time to bring in our friend Harry Schroeder. He is the Valley Hoops Insider. You can find him at valleyhoopsinsider.com. On X, he is at Father Harry1, the number 1. Covers all things Missouri Valley Conference, and got a chance to talk about all sorts of things, the news and notes from around the Missouri Valley Conference world, including his conversation with Brian Wardle. So without further ado, let's welcome in our friend Harry Schroeder, the Valley Hoops Insider, Harry Schroeder. Harry, we had a chance to listen to Coach Wardle a little earlier. You had a nice conversation with him earlier this week, talking about his thoughts on NIL and the portal. And I think the part that struck me with him was it didn't seem, and I would hope it wouldn't be that way with him, but he seemed to be coming from a place of, this thing isn't the boogeyman. Like, it's okay. Yeah. We know how it operates. We understand the rules of engagement, and let's just go and be the best we can. Was that kind of your take on it?
Well, that's exactly how I took it, Jeff. He is just that kind of guy that's always saying, don't worry about what you can't fix, and continue to get better, continue to improve. And so what he's done is just embraced it. And without putting a dollar figure on it, they have a healthy NIL budget at Bradley, and it shows in the guys they're able to retain and the guys they've been able to sign. And he feels like a lot of people, though, that it'll even out at some point as well. So do what you can do now, and then worry about how it's going to adjust next year or the year after. So, yeah, he's a very positive guy always, but he's positive about that too, and he's excited about his team.
I'm really interested to see when the dust settles, when this House settlement comes through, and we kind of see who, because it doesn't feel public right now, who has opted in, who has not opted in. And because I really think the teams that don't are, that access to that $22 million. And look, these schools in our league don't have $22 million of revenue to share, but it's still going to be millions to share rather than, I just reading between the lines, Ziggy Siegfried at Evansville a couple of weeks ago talking to Javid Redmond saying, hey, we're going to have 350, 400 in NIL. Mm-hmm. That doesn't seem to me of someone that's opting in that's going to have millions of dollars. That really feels like it's going to, even within the Valley, there's going to be more of haves and have-nots. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you talked about Ziggy. I've talked to the people there at Murray where you're at. I've talked to the people at Bradley and at Drake. And the numbers are all over the place, right? And obviously, that I do a lot with the Ohio Valley as well. And man, they're light years behind the Missouri Valley, and yet they're trying to be competitive with each other. And so, yeah, within conferences, there's going to be big differences, and within obviously college basketball across the board, it's massive differences. We have programs that are giving $2-3 million to one player, and there's probably not a Valley team that's going to have $2 or $3 million to give to their whole team. So it's going to continue to be very challenging. And yet I think most of the Valley schools have taken the right kind of steps, and they're building their NIL, they're getting their fan base involved, their donors involved. And I think that whole number is growing at virtually every one of the campuses. I've talked to 4 or 5 of the different schools in the last couple of weeks, and they're all feeling better about how those things are going.
Yeah, I think his point of everything kind of leveling out at some point, there's going to be some guardrails, but we're still in the toddler phase, year 3 or so. There's everything swings so much. Anything else stand out with you from your conversation with Coach Wardle? Whether maybe the team that's gone, the team that's coming back, anything jump out?
Well, the thing I talked to him about, and I released this one little short video probably yesterday. I'm just a big Demarion Birch fan, and I asked him about that, and he kind of has a sneaking suspicion that Birch might be that guy that is a real difference maker. He's 6'4", he's athletic, he's a lefty, likes to get to the rim, and I think that was one of my fun takeaways. I really wanted to ask him about him, and he took the bait. Mainly, and I don't mean like I was tricking him, but he agreed with me, and so that was pretty exciting. They've signed some really outstanding high school players, and I think those guys are going to fit in right away. And so I think, wow, Bradley's going to be right there. They and Illinois State are going to have great wars this year, and obviously there's going to be other teams. But I love what those two are doing, and then their proximity and their rivalry. It's very exciting.
When last we met, 5 weeks or so ago, it felt like the April Missouri Valley Conference champion Illinois State Redbirds, and things have changed in the last month. And your point, Bradley reloading, Illinois State getting Trey Campbell and 10 other guys to come back, Murray State in the portal with unproven guys, but a lot of excitement there. Now that we're in mid-May, has your preseason thoughts changed at all, or is Illinois State still maybe at the top of the pack?
I still think the Redbirds are there based on what they have coming back. And obviously they have the only first teamer coming back in Chase Walker, the only second teamer coming back in Johnny Kinziger, and then a number of other guys, right? Doherty, who hit all the 3-pointers. I mean, they've got people coming back, and then they've got a good class around them coming in as well. Some really outstanding high school players too. And so I still think they're the team. But you mentioned Northern with all the folks coming back, and they just signed a couple of big guys as well. I think Bradley's good. And when I look at the people that like Murray and Drake have signed, and even Illinois, Chicago, I think the league is going to be strong. It's easy for us to watch as they all run into the portal and they say the sky is falling, and that's what I do. I go, I'm Chicken Little, but then as guys start coming back, you see Southern pick up Isaiah Stafford, I guess is his name, the Valpo guy that sat out last year, and you see some of the people, the credentials at least, that are coming in at Murray. I think 9 Division I guys, or 8, some number like that at Drake. It's radically different, right, from program to program. Valpo has got mostly D2 and NAIA guys coming in, and so each coach is having to figure that out. But I am excited about maybe 5, 6, 7 of the teams.
Yeah, and I think to go back to Coach Wardle and the retention being so important, that as these NIL numbers grow, that is going to be as big a piece as any of. You're not going to be able to keep all of them, like he said, but boy, you can get a couple key pieces to where maybe, at the end of the year when you've got 16 all league guys, that maybe we can keep 5 or 6 rather than 1.
Yeah, there were 3 this year. Obviously, Trey Campbell is the third teamer. Only 3 last year. We only had 1. Yeah, it was Duke Dean.
Yep.
And they're at Bradley. Christian Davis, I guess, has eligibility. I don't know that I've seen him sign anywhere, but he's the only player of substance that left the program that wasn't graduation.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got, I guess Atlason also left.
Right.
And so, so they've held that core of guys that could have come back, and they did come back. And I think Johnson and Birch and Big Meta and Corey Thomas, I think they're going to be really solid guys. And so, but like seeing Jake being able to hold on to 10, 11 guys at Northern Iowa, huge. The big stars at Illinois State coming back, about a nucleus of 7 or 8 guys there, gigantic. I mean, they have such an advantage over every other program. I mean, even if Drake is bringing in all kind of great guys, and Murray, it's going to take them a minute to figure each other out. And those programs have at least a step ahead.
Let's not forget about Casey Alexander down in Nashville. Belmont's bringing a whole bunch of dudes back too. So that they are always, they're ones that feels like in the first couple sentences of the paragraph we forget about them, but then they're going to be there at the end.
I'm very curious about them because they lost obviously some significant guys. They've got a number of players coming back. Lundblade, obviously, the leader of that pack, is at least in terms of name recognition. They lost some significant players too, and they haven't brought a lot of guys in. I still think there's some pieces Casey will be bringing in, but listen, they're going to win 20 games. I mean, they're Belmont. They're going to win 20 games, and 11 or 12 of them at least will be in league play. So they're going to be right there. We know that. You can just write it in.
I don't know if you got a chance to hear my conversation with the commissioner, Jeff Jackson, last week. He talked about I asked him sort of about the Drake problem, and I said, I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it, but they were 31-4, I think, at the end when the dust settled. But at the end of the day, if they don't win on Sunday in St. Louis, I don't know that they're in. They end up as an 11 seed, which tells you they're right on that cut line. And if they lost, and for a team that lost 3 games in the regular season by 7, 6, and 2, I believe were the numbers, and to have, they had some nice wins in the non-conference. And it's like, how can a team in the top 10 league go win 30 games in the regular season and have such a slim margin? And he was like, his phrase was, somebody told me that you can mess up the seeding, but you can't mess up the teams that are in. And he said, I had no real confidence issues about Drake getting in. I knew they were going to be in. I know that's his job to exude some confidence, but looking back at that, I mean, that kind of felt crazy to me because that was not the way my stomach felt about them on Sunday in St. Louis.
A couple of the bracketology people I talked to all told me they thought Drake was in no matter what, meaning they had to get to Saturday. Probably Sunday was a guarantee. So I wasn't nervous about them getting in either.
Oh.
I thought they were in all the way as long as they got to Sunday.
Yeah.
And they obviously did better than that. And,
sure.
And so I wasn't nervous about that. But your point is super well taken. The league the coaches have to figure out a way to solve the scheduling issue, and more teams have to be better. I mean, right. Drake was amazing, but they could never get their net any higher because the rest of the league wasn't bad, but the rest of the league didn't help them. We all know those power conferences, every time they play each other, they're playing a quad 1 game or a quad
right.
2 game.
Right.
And so the Missouri Valley Conference guys just don't have that ability unless they change their non-conference scheduling and unless more of the teams end up higher in the net themselves.
What would you want to see done differently from a scheduling standpoint? I mean, they have these principles. You have to play so many quad 1s, quad 2s, and so on. But to your point, you reach a point where you are what you eat. And when you're playing a bunch of plus 200 teams, even in the league, it doesn't matter what you're doing. There's a ceiling. You're just bouncing your head off of.
Well, Coach Jackson put those protocols in, as you mentioned last year, but he gave 2 or 3 of the teams a pass because of coaching changes and all of that. And so I think you'll see that work more in the advantage of the league this year and in the years to come, because he gave them a pass because they had new coaches, and there were 5 new coaches last year.
Right.
So I do think you'll see that change, number one. Number two, I really do think they've got to get back to something like they used to have at the Mountain West Challenge back in the day, because they were going to get 5 or 6 really good games out of that Mountain West Challenge. And obviously finding the right league to do something with is key. They got into all of the ESPN. I don't want to say all of the ESPN. Their MTEs last year, most of them were ESPN events, huge, because they got to play some people and they got some notoriety. So they have to continue to do that. And I know Evansville is going to be in one of them, and Northern, and I think there's 2 Valley teams in the one that's going to be in Palm Springs, and so they have to get into those events as well. But I would love I love Commissioner Jackson, and I would love for him to be very proactive about finding a partner like that. I don't know if it's the Mountain West or it's not the Horizon. It's not, it's not people below you unless they're people right next to you,
Right.
And so maybe it's Conference USA, maybe it's one league higher up, maybe it's the A10. I would love to see them go head to head with the A10.
Yeah,
I think that'd be a good league to match up with.
Yeah, we talked about that, and he was just like, look, it doesn't do us any good to play the 13th best league. He's like, it's got to be got to be beneficial. And I asked him, I said, look, from the last 5 years, in the tournament, multi-bid leagues coming out of COVID, we've gone with 11, 10, 9, 10, and then just 7 this year. So when you're the 10th best league, the margin's getting slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. And we keep waiting for some sort of tournament expansion, even just going to 72, 74, 76, maybe that, obviously those are all of those spots are not going to mid-major programs, but at least gives the Valley an opportunity to get a second team in. Because right now, especially with this MTE stuff where the big boys are like, we're going to go play in these NIL money makers. And we're not going to the Thanksgiving tournaments anymore to play the mids. It's getting nearly impossible to get these games.
I do think, and if you follow Mark Adams, the
Oh,
ESPN
yes.
broadcaster,
Good friend.
he talks a lot about the top mid majors really getting after it with one another, and I think that's part of the math equation too. If the top 2 or 3 Missouri Valley teams are playing the top 2 or 3 A10 Mountain West Conference USA, if they're doing some of those kinds of things, they can build their own net that way. They can kind of beat the system a little bit. They have to do some things like that, or they're going to continue to fall behind because the big power conferences are going to demand, even if there's expansion, well, we have to have X amount of teams in there. And we saw it this past year. Obviously, the SEC was great, but if you're in the SEC, you're just in the tournament. It's crazy. So they have to figure out a way to game the system. And way back in the glory days, the Missouri Valley Conference, where we had 4 teams and so forth, and multiple teams going to the Sweet 16. They had learned how to game the RPI.
Yeah,
they got to figure it out now with the net.
I used that phrase with Commissioner Jackson last year at Media Day about gaming the RPI. And that man just about jumped out of his suit at me because he was like, hey, we had very good I was like, I understand. But something was done where you were able to get so many teams in the top 30 in that RPI. Scheduling is always, and the commissioner says this a lot, where he's like, it's a very personal thing. Every coach has different reasons for scheduling. Sometimes it's, I'm trying to protect my job. I just want to go win games to try to, float us up a little bit. I can't be worried about computers. Sometimes you got guys that we're just going to go play a banana schedule to try to help it out. And, if we don't win, we don't win, but we're just trying to help in the big picture. It feels like you kind of, if you can't play big boys or big boys don't want to play you is probably the better way to look at it. It feels like it's just that we're in kind of that half pregnant mode right now where it's like you got to pick a lane. Either I'm going to play nobody and I'm just going to try to win every game in November and December, or
by 30, by the way, 100%. You got to win by 30. Yeah.
Got to blow teams out. Or you've got to go play all the mid majors you can play that are of substance, and maybe not all top 50 teams, but even like we're not playing anybody worse than 125, somewhere around there. And I don't know that there's a path. I've talked to enough coaches. It just feels like winning has to be the priority, but sometimes I feel like they get in their own way of helping their own cause because they're so worried about losing that they don't want to put things at risk. And then the computers eat them up.
It's difficult because you're talking about the big picture versus the myopic picture, right? I want my league to be able to succeed. Listen, it's good for UIC if they can play some people, or let me say it differently. If the league gets multiple teams in, the schools get more money.
Right.
They have to think about it in both ways. Like, okay, I'm trying to win my games, but the league and my program is going to get NCAA tournament money by the more appearances we make in the NCAA tournament. So they have to be able to see the big picture, and it's difficult. Like you said, they're caught in between, right? They want to keep their job and they want the fans to be happy. And if we win games, maybe we get more NIL money and we can get better players, and maybe next year we'll play somebody. But they really do have to. And I'll just say this too, that if you're a team like Valpo, for example, who lost everybody, on their roster and they're rebuilding, it doesn't do the league any good for them to go get hammered at Purdue or whatever. I mean, so he might as well, Roger Paul Jr. might as well schedule a bunch of 150 to 200 teams and hope they can be 500 in the non-conference and then win some games in the league just to improve the program. You have to know where your program is at. But Bradley ought to be playing everybody they can play. And Illinois State ought to be playing anybody. I mean, like, people talk about, well, we don't want to do home and home. We don't want to just go to a big school. Just go to the stinking big school. Give it a rip. Right. They're going to pay you money to be there, and you might win it.
Sometimes, though, that's and not to single out Valpo, but any school, it's like, well, we've got to play at least one of these games because we need the $100,000 check to help balance the budget and all that. And that's where all the time there's never one reason for anything. There's a lot of masters that get answered to. The men's basketball rules committee has met. They've come up with some proposals to get voted on next month. The one that we have a committee that's asked to form another committee that maybe we can learn something next year in the men's game about flipping from halves to quarters. Any pearl clutching one way or the other on that potential decision there?
Not for me. I like the uniqueness of the men's game being the 20 minutes. You have too. I've been around the women's game a lot. I, frankly, I like the quarters. I do.
Yeah.
I was against it. Like philosophically, I want it to be different. I don't want it to be like the NBA, but I've been around the women's game enough. I've announced enough of women's games. I'm like, I kind of like this. There's some symmetry to it, but also even the foul situation just is so much easier to keep track of, and you just know what's going to be playing out. And so I kind of am 50-50 on it. I don't care, but I was against it. Now I'm not.
It's funny that you said the NBA, because that's a lot of the feedback is like, I don't like the NBA. Well, it's like, but we do it in high school too.
Yeah.
We do it in the women's game. They do it in international basketball. Like it's everywhere but men's college basketball. They just do these 20-minute halves. So I guess for continuity, maybe it feels like the general theme of all these rules changes and proposals at least are, we've got to make the games end in a timely fashion, because these 2.5-hour games and you get teams in the double bonus, with 13 minutes left, and then it's a free throw shooting contest. Quarters can at least eliminate that. The one thing they are going to vote on is coaches getting one challenge in a game to review out of bounds calls, goaltending, or if somebody's in the restricted area, and officials cannot go look at the monitor unless somebody has their challenge. And that is really the main thing in those final 2 minutes, when coaches are like, hey, go, every single out of bounds is getting reviewed. And it turns into, we talk about the NBA, it's like the final minute of an NBA game would take 45 minutes. And that's the way the college games got.
Yeah. I'm really hoping for more replays next year. Aren't you? I just,
That was my running joke for 15, probably 20 years. 15, once they finally instituted the Ohio Valley Conference. It was like, we can't have a game without an OVC referee monitor review. And it's an epidemic.
It is. And frankly, obviously there are plays that are overturned, and
sure,
and that's good if they can get it right. But half the time they're looking at it for like 5 minutes,
right,
and they're like, well, and then they decide. It's like, listen, if it takes you more than 10 seconds to figure it out, let's just move on. I don't care if you review it, but if it's longer than 20 seconds, we're done. Move along.
Yeah, the monitor's there for blatant misses. If you can't figure it out in 10 seconds, let's move on and let's play ball. All right, Harry Schroeder, he is the Valley Hoops insider. Before I let you go, you also had a conversation with Camp Wagner recently from Indiana State, one of the returners who I think, when the dust settles and we got to put preseason teams together, there's a young man that kind of quietly was maybe not a frontier guy for the Sycamores early on in the year, but boy, he came on late and really feels like he could be a dude that could cause some issues around the conference next year.
Yeah, he's a great shooter, and he had a really efficient year a year ago as not one of the headliners. Now he's going to be the top guy on the scouting report, unless one of their new guys emerges. He's going to be the guy that people want to stop, and that changes everything for him. But the kid is driven. He's got his priorities in the right order. He's extremely tight with the returners that are coming back. They've got a nucleus that I think is good enough to, be competitive, and we'll see about the additions. And they like each other, and they like Coach Graves. I think there's some real good vibe coming out of Terre Haute. Are they good enough? I don't know, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do.
Anybody else coming down the pike you're going to be talking to soon? You want to tease the world here with what's
I would just love to, if people just return my phone calls. I don't know. You're a big time guy. You don't have that problem, but yeah, I'm in the middle of a 3-part series on all the portal signings. I did one last week, and I'm writing one right now about Murray and Drake and Valpo, the ones that have had the most change. Yeah. And so I'll be doing that this week, 1 or 2 of those follow-up articles on the portal shopping.
You can check that out at valleyhoopsinsider.com. He is the Valley Hoops Insider, Harry Schroeder. Thanks for the time, sir. We'll talk soon.
You kidding me? I'd follow you anywhere, Jeff. Thanks for the time.
Harry. Got him fooled too. Again, check him out, valleyhoopsinsider.com, on X, not Twitter, X, at Father Harry, and the number 1 for all your Valley news here throughout the summer. We've got some other additions from a talent acquisition standpoint to get to here before we get out this morning, as Evansville has gone and grabbed a a guard out of the freshman ranks. So much portal talk, still some freshmen being signed. His name is Aaron Gutman. He is from Walton Verona High School in Kentucky. 2,000 point scorer in high school, 6'7" wing, 23.7 rebounds a game this season. Looking back through his offers, had a lot of offers from the non-Division I ranks, but man, seeing some video of him, the kid is athletic. He can score, and this may be a late, I guess a mid-May, but late in the cycle steal for David Ragland there in Evansville. So we'll keep an eye on Aaron Gutman, a class of 2025 recruiting get. In terms of 2026, Belmont has gotten a commitment from Shelby Jordan, the Dyersburg, Tennessee product. She had dozens of offers coming out of high school, but are still in high school, but dozens of offers to sift through. The 4 schools, she said, really coming after her hard here late. Middle Tennessee, Tulane, Murray State, and Belmont. But in the end, Bart Brooks and the Bruins are the winners of the Shelby Jordan sweepstakes, the 5'9" guard in the class of 2026. And finally, we told you about the commitment last week. Now it is official and signed. Amiri Mimi Flowers has signed with Indiana State, product out of McLennan Community College down in Waco, Texas. 6'2" freshman. She'll have 3 years of eligibility remaining. Scored 7 points a game down there at McLennan, and now is coming to join Mark Mitchell's roster at Indiana State. All right, that does it for this morning's edition of Morning in the Valley. Thanks again to Harry Schroeder, the Valley Hoops Insider, for being with us today. If you haven't done so already, head on over to YouTube and support the show there. Subscribe to it, share, comment, like, all of it. Just search Morning in the Valley. You can get all that done there. Coming up on Wednesday, we'll talk with Southern Illinois head coach Scott Nagy. Year 1 in Carbondale is in the books. We'll talk with Coach Nagy about getting ready for year 2 with the Dogs and trying to get SIU back to the top of the Missouri Valley Conference. Thanks again for being with us today. We'll see you Wednesday morning, 9 a.m. right here on Morning in the Valley.